We at the condo, let's have a pool party. Ain't no space in the garage, I got a new Bugatti.
Hey, yo, turn that piano up, man.
Double M.
All right, talking about the Dolphins. Dolphins had a tough offseason. You know, a whole regime change started about halfway through the year last year. Adam Gase decided that it was time to get rid of Ajayi for basically nothing, maybe a couple draft picks. I don't really remember what they gave up for it, but basically gave Ajayi to the Eagles for, I think, a third-round pick and something else. So last year was not the best year for the Miami Dolphins. And then, you know, going into this offseason wasn't very good either. We had a huge decision to make. Do we pay Jarvis Landry and do we fuck our books over that have already been fucked because we decided to add Ndamukong Suh a couple years ago when we really didn't have the money to do it anyways? So we decided we're going to part ways with Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry, we're going to let you go someplace where you can get paid like you want to go. You know, we'll take the cap space. We'll enjoy the cap space for it. Well, not only did they lose Jarvis Landry, they lost Jamad Bushrod this offseason, an offensive lineman, to New Orleans. They also lost, what's his name? Pouncey, the center. He's in San Diego now. Ndamukong Suh plays for the Rams. Lawrence Timmons is gone. Lawrence Timmons, he either got released or something like that. I mean, he wasn't a bad linebacker. I think he had his issues. Them and the Dolphins had their issues, but that's another loss. And then Julian Thomas, the tight end that literally hasn't done anything since he had Peyton Manning throwing to him, which is a good loss, I would say. Some ads this year, they got Kilgore from he's an offensive lineman from the 49ers. Good pick there, or not a pick, but good ad there. I like that. Adrian Wilson, I think is his name, or Albert Wilson, not Adrian. Albert Wilson from Kansas City. Amendola, they got Amendola to replace Landry. I really like that. I think that was a good ad. I think, you know, they did a lot of bad shit this summer, but out of the few good things they did, I think adding Amendola to replace Landry was one of the good ones. I think he's going to be a good player this year. Frank Gore, you know, got a veteran guy, a guy that's over, you know, he's past due. He's a guy that his career should be over at this point, but he continues to produce, continues to put up a good amount of yards every year. So I think it was a good ad for a team that has good, you know, speed backs, but needs a veteran, a blocking back, and stuff like that. I think Frank Gore was a good ad. Josh Sitton came over. That was a good ad. I think Josh Sitton will be a good lineman they lost a good amount of line this year. I think that's going to be a good one. Brock Osweiler, you know, you never know, man. He may be playing week 8 when, you know, if Tannehill comes back and is bad, man, Osweiler, he continues to get opportunities. This guy, I don't know how he does it. Osweiler every year somehow gets on the team and somehow just is competing. So some of the things I said they need to do this offseason that they didn't do well. Address the offensive line, which they basically let Pouncey and they let Bushrod go. Bushrod was a free agent. They needed to sign him. They needed to address their guards. Okay, they did get Kilgore and they got Sitton. Not bad. They need to add another tackle. Okay, draft a running back. They did draft a running back in Kalen Ballage, but Kalen Ballage is one of those guys that if you look at him, you're like, man, this kid looks really good. But then you put some pads on him, you put him on an NFL field, and he just doesn't do what you're asking him to do. That's kind of what I got out of him from Arizona State. He doesn't hit the hole hard. I mean, you look at the kid and you go, man, he's 6'2", he's good weight. This kid looks like he could be really good. He had a 7-touchdown game against Tech once. It's like, well, Tech's never had a defense, so that's not no feat. And I just am not sold on him. I mean, you got Kenyon Drake, who had an awesome year last year. Go with Kenyon Drake, Frank Gore. That's good enough for me. Damian Williams, if they still have him. Some other key guys, William Hayes, they re-signed. K.O. Misa, Nate Allen are both free agents. Alteron Werner is a free agent as well. Those are some of the guys. that they kind of let go. Their draft, I think they had a good draft though. That's what I will say. Minka Fitzpatrick, I think he fell to 10 or whatever when they got him. I think that was a really good pick for getting Minka Fitzpatrick that late. Mike Gesicki, I think Mike Gesicki was a huge pick. I think he's a guy that's gonna definitely make an impact this year. And I've heard that Gaze is gonna want to play him. He uses tight ends, but like he uses them more out wide, and I think he's going to use them a lot like, Sean Payton used Jimmy Graham in New Orleans, kind of post him out wide. I think that's – and because he's not that good of a blocker. Jerome Baker, linebacker out of Ohio State, he'll have the ability to come onto the scene and play start first year, Jerome Baker. Durham Smith, tight end out of Notre Dame, more of the blocking type. I think this guy could be your more blocking type tight end. I think he'll play some. I think Mike Gesicki is definitely the starter. Kalen Ballage, like I mentioned, the running back out of Arizona State. Cornell Armstrong, Quentin Poling, a linebacker, I think, out of Ohio. And then Jason Sanders. I don't know Jason Sanders. One thing I will say about Miami, though, when you look at their defense is pretty good. Not a bad defensive line. Cameron Wake's on the defensive line. They got a couple other pieces. William Hayes is there. Sue's gone, so their interior defensive line is going to be hurting a little bit, obviously. With no Sue, that's going to be a big issue. But we'll see how that ends up. Linebacker, Kiko Alonso, one of the better linebackers in the league. Adding Jerome Baker, another guy. And then secondary-wise, I think they have a pretty underrated secondary. They have Rashad Jones as one of their safeties. I think Minka Fitzpatrick could be that other safety. And then you talk about their cornerbacks. They've got, what's his name? Tankersley, Cordero Tankersley or something like that. He's from Clemson. And he played pretty good last year. And then Xavier Howard's on the other side, a kid from Baylor, who's showed potential as well. So I think their secondary or their defense is stronger than people expect, but I do still think that they're very weak in the trenches. I think they did a bad job of addressing their offensive line, their defensive line in the draft, and obviously in free agency as well. We'll see what happens with the defensive line, going forward. In the offensive line, they did add a couple guys, and we'll see if they mesh together well. Kilgore's sitting. I think maybe they added this kid named Quinn too. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I'm not really sold on Miami. I think Miami, could be 6-10, but I bet maybe 7-9. I don't think Miami is going to be that good this year. I think Miami is going to be a mediocre team. I just think they're a couple years away. I think they're in a situation too where they've sold it that Tannehill's the guy and that Tannehill is good enough to be a franchise quarterback. And I think what everybody's been kind of saying the whole time is that he's not. And he's kind of gotten a couple passes lately because every time that he starts to play good, he either gets injured. He's kind of like he's a lot like Andy Dalton. As soon as he starts to play good and you start to see potential from him, he gets hurt or something. And something like that happens, and you go, well, I can't just. He was showing talent. He was showing that he could play the NFL quarterback position, and then boom, they get injured, or boom, something happens where you can vouch for them for a little bit until they come back. And I think this next time coming back, Tannehill is really going to get if he doesn't come back and he doesn't play good, even with the shit team that he's going to have next year, I think his leash is going to be short. I think Osweiler might get an opportunity, and I think that the Dolphins did a really bad job. I mean, Minka Fitzpatrick was a really good pick, and I know you looked at it as Tannehill can be the guy, but to me, I think you should have gone after your Josh Rosen at 10, like you could have. I'm pretty sure. Maybe they got Minka Fitzpatrick at 11, so maybe they couldn't get Rosen at 10 because Rosen went at 10. But there was a good amount of quarterbacks in the draft. I think it would have been more beneficial to go after a quarterback this year because I don't think Tannehill's the answer. There was a lot of good quarterbacks in the draft this year, but oh well, we'll see. I mean, the Dolphins will probably continue to be the mediocre team that they've been the last 4 to 5 seasons, and they've showed potential at times. I don't see it with the offensive line. And the weapons that they're giving, they have Devontae Parker, but what has Devontae Parker been? He's been nothing of what he's been asked to be. He was a first round pick, high first round pick, and then Kenny Stills is the other wide receiver. Kenny Stills is a good wide receiver, but this team has good pieces, but it's one of those teams. It's like we all live in a nice city.
I'm in that 2C Lambo with your girl, she tryna jerk. Okay, Lamborghini Mercy, yo chick, she so thirsty. I'm in that 2C Lambo with your girl, she tryna jerk me. Okay, Lamborghini Mercy, yo chick, she so thirsty.